What's up, all you handsome chaps and lovely birds? Welcome to another episode of Out of Pop Culture Bounds. I am your host. Let's just call me Chris. Woke up this morning, went to the gym. Lovely morning. Needed a good exercise going on. And I know I've mentioned this before, still makes me chuckle, but it's so goofy. People, when you go to the gym and you park your car, why do you insist on parking in the closest spot possible to the gym? Think about it. You're going to the gym. I can understand if you're going to the podiatrist and you want to park in the closest spot, but you're going to the gym and you want to get the closest spot. What are you afraid you're going to get too much cardio? My God, it's a gym. So ridiculous. And then in the gym, first thing I do is hit the treadmill, get myself, my body warmed up. And I see this every time I go to the gym without fail. I always see a lady or two or five on the treadmills, but they have the incline cranked up to about like 30 to 40 degrees of an incline. And it's like, well, damn, are you planning on like hiking up a mountain? But yet they're walking, but they're hanging on for dear life to the handle in front of them. Bad idea. For all of you who do that, don't do that. If you're on the treadmill and you have to hang on to a bar, you are not even remotely getting the kind of workout that you may think that you're getting. Okay? Don't hang on to anything. If you can't do it with your arms being free, then you're doing it wrong. All right? Maybe bring it down to about a 15-degree incline or a 10-degree incline. Okay? Don't do 30 to 45-degree incline and hanging on for dear life. You think you're getting one hell of a workout. I assure you, you are not. You are not. If you have to hang on, you are not getting the workout you even remotely think that you're getting. And this is not me talking out of my ass. My brother and my mother were both personal trainers. Okay, they tell me these things, so they know. So I'm taking their advice. So do yourself a favor, ladies and gentlemen. Don't do that. But also today at the gym, while I'm on the treadmill, in the treadmill in front of me and then a little off to the right, there was this very lovely bird working, herself out on a elliptical. Oh my God. I mean, I glanced at her. I'm like, yeah, she's pretty. But then I looked around the room and I saw literally I counted three guys just staring at her. I mean, going out of their way to stare at her. And I'm thinking to myself, Jesus, guys, yeah, she's pretty, but the three of you look like a couple of like sexual offenders or something like that, dude. You might want to, take it easy on that one. It's one thing to glance, but you guys look like you just want to tackle her down and start fucking. It's ridiculous. If you think that she's going to be turned on by something like that or even flattered by something like that, I really don't think she's going to be. I wouldn't. Not that this has happened, but if I had three women not staring dagger, but just staring sexually rather at me, I'd be like, okay, this is kind of creepy. It's like, what the hell's going on here? So it was just goofy to see these guys, these total pervs. And also today, right before I was done, there was this weird workout guy. He was on a machine, he was on the free weights rather, and he was doing whatever the hell he was doing, and he would put the weights down, and as soon as he put the weights down, he'd grab this big 50-pound weight, the kind of weight that you would put on the end of a bar to do like bench presses or something like that, and he is just like, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. It was like he was rotating it like around his head. He was holding onto it with both hands and just rotating it like in circles around his head. And I'm like, what the hell is this guy doing? I mean, obviously it's, I know what he's doing, but it just looks so goofy because he wasn't doing it like slow. He was doing it fast. And I'm like, oh my God, if God forbid someone wasn't paying attention, like walked a little too close to him, they'd probably be knocked out by the damn weight. Or if he accidentally lets go of the thing, he's going to kill somebody. It's like, dude, slow down or something. Or better yet, don't do some weird workout that you saw on Arnold Schwarzenegger's documentary, Pumping Iron. Okay, just do a normal workout. You don't need to become some crazed maniac. What's next? He's going to be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to take this bar, I'm going to javelin it across the room, and, that's good for the triceps. And, oh, you see this machine? Watch me just pick it up and throw it. And it's like, the hell are you doing, man? It's like, just work out like a normal person. Don't do some weird, Mr. Olympia crap. But always a trip going to the gym, man. But yesterday I was reminiscing with a couple of people about a few high school stories. And I was thinking to myself, well, this might be a somewhat interesting topic for my podcast. And I want to talk about a couple of teachers and some other staff members from my old high school. As I said, I grew up in the Chicagoland area. And the high school I went to was a lot of towns. A lot of towns went to this one high school, so it was a huge school. It was so big that there was two campuses. There was a South Campus and a North Campus. South Campus was freshman, sophomore. North Campus, which was about a mile away, was junior and senior. That's how big the district was, I guess you would say. Now, not that this really has anything to do with anything right now, but I say something later that calls back to this. South Campus with the freshmen and sophomores, a lot of students that went there were total, I don't know, maybe either legit gangbangers or wannabe gangbangers. But either way, troublemakers, a lot of troublemakers went to South Campus, along with, everyone else, of course. But then once junior year at North Campus started, I noticed that damn near every one of those troublemakers were gone. And I don't know if they got expelled, maybe they moved, perhaps they dropped out. I have no idea. But seriously, like 98% of them were gone as soon as junior year started at North Campus. And of course, I was like, good riddance. We don't need people, starting knife fights in the hallways and crap. But I get to that a little bit later on, so bear with me. But just let that be known that that's how, it was. But at North Campus, my absolute favorite teacher, and I am going to use his real name because he does deserve a shout out. His name is Mr. Culver, and I had him for a music teacher. Mr. Culver was, if I had to guess, maybe 30 years old. Maybe. He was a young dude, maybe 30 years old. And at the time, I was 17. Totally cool guy, totally nice. Like I said, he was my music teacher. He taught me how to play guitar. I had already been playing bass and I knew a little about playing guitar, but he took it to that next level where he started, teaching me more intricate chords and some music theory, things like that. And I loved it. He was such a cool guy. He was very patient. Very what's what I'm looking for, very motivational, I guess, for lack of a better word. Great guy, favorite teacher by far. And I also had him for I can't remember exactly what the name of the class was, but literally all we did was we watched movies. So I had him for a guitar class, and then I had him for we watched movies. And we watched movies that had they were either musicals, just flat out musicals like The Sound of Music, things like that. We watched that, musicals like that too as well. But we would also listen to, watch movies like Jaws, Jurassic Park, Return of the Jedi because of the musical scores. And he would sit there while the movie is playing and he'd go, yeah, you hear that? Da 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 da. And he would like explain why those notes are the way they are. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then again, same thing with like Jurassic Park, where he'd be like, you hear that? Da, na, 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 na. And the same thing. He would like just break it down. It's like, wow, this is actually interesting. I never really stopped to listen to a score of a movie and go, interesting. There's a reason why those notes are the way they are, and so on and so forth. It was really cool. But again, we also watched The Sound of Music, Annie, whatever else. And he was just, it was a fun class just watching movies. And, but man, such a great teacher, such a cool guy. And I remember once I saw him outside of school. It was at Blockbuster Video back when those existed. And I was there looking for a movie to rent. And all of a sudden I hear this voice behind me going, Mr. Chris. And I turned around and it was Mr. Culver. And I was like, hey, Mr. Culver, how you doing, man? We shake hands. Keep in mind, Mr. Culver, such a cool guy. My favorite teacher I had throughout high school period. And I had some cool ones, but he was my favorite. Not that I am, but he's not exactly the greatest looking guy. He's not ugly, don't get me wrong, but he's certainly not like Mr. Stud Muffin USA either, and neither am I. But he was there with his girlfriend. He's like, yeah, this is my girlfriend, Jessica, let's just call her. And I look over at her, and his girlfriend was smoking hot. I'm talking smoking hot. It was like, oh my God. It reminded me of the scene towards the end of the movie of Fast Times at Ridgemont High, where there's that goofy looking teacher and he introduces his wife to some of his students. His wife is like some Playboy centerfold or whatever. It was kind of like that. And I'm sitting there looking at her, and I'm damn near shaking her hand going like, oh, I'd like to eat you. Oh, what was that? I said, it's nice to meet you. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'd love to wrap your legs around my face. I'm sorry, what did you say? I said, I'm going to rent this movie. It's like I'm like, how, dude, Mr. Culver, God bless you, man. He must have a ding dong down to his knee, because this chick was smoking hot. Good for him. Now, for every Mr. Culver that I had the antithesis of with Miss Pelfrain. And yes, that was her name. I understand she's since been married. At least I was told that. She's probably divorced by now. But yes, her maiden name, Pelfrain. She was, there's no more polite way, no better or accurate way to put this. She was a cunt. She was a fucking bitch. I could not stand her. Okay. She was a young teacher, probably fresh out of grad school. She was probably like 24 years old, maybe. And she had the kind of attitude of, I need to show these students immediately who's boss. She had that kind of a demeanor to her. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but there is a nice, polite, respectful way to do that. And she didn't do that. She was just not a nice person. I could not stand her. God, was she a bitch. And I could blabber on about all kinds of examples, but I will give you the biggest example where it came to certain t-shirts. Now, I don't know if any of you guys remember, but back in the mid 90s, there was a brand of t-shirt called Big Johnson. And it like Big Johnson monster trucks, Big Johnson baseball bats, on and on. And I had a couple of those Big Johnson shirts. And one in particular I had was Big Johnson tents, and then there would be a little slogan underneath it saying, when you really need to pitch a tent, make sure you have a Big Johnson. And then it'd have a cartoon of a guy laying on his back in the middle of the forest with a tent covering about like the lower half of his body. And obviously the pole is sticking up to make that triangular shape. And obviously the joke, the innuendo being that it's his dick. that is the Big Johnson. And it was the same thing with like Big Johnson baseball bats. And it's like when you are swinging away, make sure you have your hands on your Big Johnson, things like that. I thought it was funny at the time. I thought like, oh, this is clever. It's funny, the innuendo. Well, she was ridiculously offended by these shirts, ridiculously offended. And when I would show up to her class wearing one of these shirts, when I would wear them, she would say, go out in the hallway, turn that shirt inside out, come back to class. And initially I did it. I was like, all right, fine, whatever. Let's just get this class over with. I fucking hate you anyway, until I started noticing around the school and different women, different girls, high school girls, wearing, shirts that were not issued by the school. These were obviously shirts that somebody on their sports team had made up and given out to the girls or whatever. They had like a girls swim team, right? And it would literally say the name of the school, and it would say swim team. And then under that, it would say in quotes, we give the best strokes. Yeah. And then, name of the high school. And it would, underneath that, it would say girls volleyball. And then in quotes, it would say, we handle the balls the best. Yeah. And I'm like, wait a minute. And those shirts were not issued by the school, obviously. This is like something that these ladies came up with on their own and thought it was cute to wear in school. And they were. I'm like, oh, that's clever. That's cool. I'll admit, a bit sexy. Knock yourselves out, ladies. That's great. But yet that was okay. Every single teacher, administrator, dean, whatever have you, said that's okay. But yet I wear a Big Johnson t-shirt and I'm told to turn it inside out. And by the way, only Miss Pelfrain had a problem with my Big Johnson t-shirts. No teacher I had, no other teacher I had gave a shit. She was the only one. Okay. And I was thinking to myself, well, wait a minute. If I can't wear this sexual innuendo shirt, and even the dean was like, oh, Chris, you can't be wearing those shirts. Well, why the hell can these girls wear these shirts? And the answer I was given, well, that's school spirit. Hog shit. It's the same fucking sexual innuendo. Just because it has the name of our high school on it does not make it school spirit. No, actually, maybe it is school spirit, but that sexual innuendo is still there. So if they can wear that and not get into any trouble, then I can wear a Big Johnson t-shirt and not get into any trouble. And if there's any deviation from that, that's discrimination. And so I eventually would go to Miss Pelfrain's class with a Big Johnson t-shirt on, knowing that she was going to say, go out in the hallway and turn it inside out. And I said, nope. I mean, just like that, nope. And she's like, excuse me? I said, nope. She's like, what do you mean by that? I said, I am no longer going to allow you to make an example out of me. She goes, excuse me? And I said, you heard me. I said, I know what you're doing. Okay? I know what you're doing. You are trying to make an example out of me to show the rest of the class that you're in charge and that you are not to be fooled with. And you're using me as a tool to express that. I went on about the whole, girls volleyball team and the girls swimming and those t-shirts. I said, it's the same damn thing that I'm wearing. So if it's acceptable for them to wear that, then it's acceptable for me to wear this. And she goes, you know what, smart ass, go to the dean's office. And I literally remember saying to her, fine, if you want to push your problems off to somebody else, that's one hell of a lesson that you're teaching the class. And get out. She didn't like that one. I've always been rather witty. Anyway, so I go to the dean and the dean's like, Chris, she could fail you. I'm like, fuck her. I don't care if she does fail me. At least I'm standing up for what's right. He's like, well, then you'll have to go to summer school. I understand that, but at least I'm standing up for what's right. Doing what's right is not always the easy path, Mr. Dean. And I told him about the whole, he's like, well, we can't allow t-shirts like this with, the sexual innuendos. And I said, bullshit, because the girls swim team, girls volleyball team, blah, 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 blah. This is the same thing. And, if there's any deviation from that, that is discrimination. Okay. And some courts may find it to be very easy for me to be litigious about that, Mr. Dean. And I remember he gave me a look like he was impressed, because clearly I'm not dumb, not even close to being dumb. And he said, look, I understand what you're saying, but I can't control if Miss Pelfrain is going to fail you or not. If she fails you, I cannot interfere. I said, I don't care. Fuck her. If I have to go to summer school, then so be it. At least I'm sticking up for what I really believe in. And to this day, I tell people that story and they're kind of like, yeah, but dude, that's a little too. It's like, no, it's not a little too. It's a lot too. Okay. Because the hell with her. Okay. That's bullshit. If you really believe in something, you gotta stick to your guns and believe in it, especially when it's bullshit. Okay. It's not like I'm saying, oh, if you really truly believe in, stealing people's hubcaps, you should do it. No. Okay. I'm talking about what's right, as far as, discrimination and bullshit like that, that shouldn't be tolerated. But I remember that was junior year that I had this teacher. And yes, of course, I had to take summer school, but it was worth it. I don't care. It was worth it. The following year, obviously, was my senior year. And I remember I had my locker for the whole year was right outside of this bitch's classroom. Literally, it's like, why did I have to get a locker outside of Miss Pelfrain's classroom? And the whole year, she would give me dirty looks. I would give her dirty looks. I never had her as a teacher again, of course. But we never said anything to each other. We just exchanged looks. Now, the very, very last day of school, bell rings, cleaning out our lockers, getting the hell out of there for the final time. I'm so glad high school is over. And she's standing outside of her classroom, like saying goodbye to some students and just kind of looking around. Well, the bitch looks at me and she says something to the effect of, have a nice life being a loser, Chris. It's something to that effect. I don't remember her exact words, but it was something like that. And I had enough. I mean, that was such a cheap shot that she didn't have to say anything to me. She wanted to start something with me right there. Okay. And I immediately saw red, dropped my backpack, pretty much got nose to nose with her and called her every name in the book. Every name in the book. And she's sitting there, waving her hand like, okay, yeah, grow up, Chris, get away from me, just waving her hand, trying to just go away, and grow up. And as she's saying all this, I'm like, you know what? You go fuck yourself, you fucking cunt. I hope to God a bus hits your ass and both your arms and legs go popping off your body and you got to roll your sorry ass around for the rest of your fucking life. And I just went off on her. And then I eventually just grabbed my backpack and I said, why don't you go fuck yourself or something like that? I don't remember exactly what my last words were to her, but it was something to that effect. And that was it. And it's funny because my mother's like, well, to this day, my mother, well, Christopher, you liked high school. You enjoyed high school. No, I did not. I enjoyed the time that I was in high school, like my friends, the parties, the gals that, I possibly played smoochy face with and dated, whatever the case may be. Yes, I enjoyed that time period, but actual school itself, there was very little that I enjoyed about school. Like I said, Mr. Culver was awesome with his music classes. I enjoyed the artsy fartsy stuff. The artsy fartsy stuff I did very well, like ceramics class, shop class, painting, drawing, you name it. That's the stuff I really excelled in and did very well. Those are the classes that I got the A's. Everything else, math, history, all that kind of stuff, I got like C's. C's and D's because I could care less what A over Y times B over X equaled. I could care less. I could care less that, in 702 AD, some dude killed some other dude. I can care less. Not that that's a good attitude to have, but that's certainly how it was for me in high school. In a tremendous nutshell, I have so many wonderful stories I could tell, and probably will, as these episodes progress. But also in our school, we had, well, I mean, there's security, is what they are, but we all called them narcs. Of course, they were school security. And like I said, there was South Campus and North Campus, and South Campus was the school with, all the either legit or wannabe gangbangers and the ruffians and, all that crap. and, and North Campus, like I said, 98% of them were just, for whatever reason, not there, which good riddance as far as I'm concerned. But South Campus, there was a lot of fights that broke out at South Campus, a lot of fights. And security there was more extreme is not the word I'm looking for, but there was definitely more security at South Campus than there was North Campus. Let's put it that way. And my senior year, I had heard, and I'm thinking, oh, this is probably one of those hallway stories that you hear in the school and shit like that, But I had heard that one of the security people from South Campus who was this woman. I won't mention her name. I didn't particularly care for her, but because she wasn't exactly the most pleasant person, but whatever. I still don't want to mention her name because of what happened. Apparently, two high school girls, either freshman or sophomore, got into a fight in the main lobby of the of the high school, the South Campus high school, and this security lady, who, by the way, was probably like in her late 50s, early 60s. I mean, she was she wasn't some old decrepit lady by any means, but she also wasn't exactly a spring chicken. She was easily in her late 50s, early 60s. She tried to chime in and physically break these girls apart from each other. One of them took the phone off the receiver of the payphone, back when payphones existed, and proceeded to smack the security lady over her head repeatedly with the phone. And she was out. She was on the ground, bleeding from her skull. That is what I heard. And I was like, wow, that's messed up. Yeah, she wasn't exactly the nicest person, but, she didn't deserve to get, beaten and bloodied, for God's sake. But it's one of those hallway stories. It's probably not even true. But then I talked to good old Mr. Culver, and I said, yeah, Mr. Culver, did you hear the story about so-and-so? And he immediately chimed in and said, yes, she's actually in the hospital still. That happened yesterday, and she's in the hospital, and, she's obviously retiring, and she's not in good shape. I was like, oh my God, it's true. I mean, that's some sick, twisted stuff. I mean, it's one thing to give someone a smack, even though I don't exactly condone that either, but but nevertheless, that's one thing. But it's another thing to actually grab a weapon and beat someone to the point where they're bleeding out of their skull. Yeah, to say the least, I know for a fact that girl who did that was expelled. And I don't know if she was brought up on charges. That I don't know, but I do know she was expelled. And I hope she was brought up on charges. That's some bullshit. But North Campus, the security there, the narcs, there was one guy, I don't remember his real name, but we always called him Klinger. Not to his face, but we'd refer to him as Klinger because he looked just like Klinger from the TV show MASH. And he was a real nice guy. He was actually cool. Like if we like ditched school and then we were coming back to school, like if we ditched a class or two and now we're coming back, and if we saw him and he saw us like trying to sneak in back into the school, he would like come running up to us and say, you know what, use the side door because Shar is coming this way. And, so go that way. And we're like, oh, okay, cool. Thanks, man. And then we would. And so he'd always like try to cover our backs as best he could, because Shar was the other security guard who, again, was an older gal, not the most pleasant person, but I guess when you're security, you can't really be pleasant and be security, but whatever. There was one incident. Well, before I get into that, the school had a rule where there was no smoking on school campus, which included teachers back when people smoked. Well, I guess people do still smoke, but anyway, they had a rule no smoking on campus. Well, I decided to ditch a class with my best friend, one of my best friends, who I really want to Zoom him in at some point and do an episode with him because it would be awesome. We'll see. He seems a little hesitant, but that's neither here nor there. He and I ditched the class to go down the block from the school because there was this tiny little Chinese restaurant that was a little hole in the wall dive, but they had awesome food. And we ditched a class to go down there and eat. And when we were coming back, he lit up a cigarette as we were walking back to school. Now, the school considered on campus to even be across the street from the school, which I don't think you can, that's not the case. It's like, okay, you morally consider across the street from the school to be still on campus. Hence why they don't want you smoking across the street from the school. That's the only reason why they seemingly would say that. And so we're walking back and he's smoking his cigarette and we're just bullshitting. And all of a sudden Shar comes running out and she's waving her finger in the air at us. And she goes, I want your IDs. I want your IDs. Blah, 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 blah. And we were cool. We're like, all right, we did ditch. You got us. We're not going to try to, cover. You got us. So like, all right, we're like reaching for our wallets to give her ID, our IDs. And he puts his cigarette in his mouth to reach for his wallet. And then she goes, oh, you're smoking on school grounds. Keep in mind, we're across the street from the school. And my buddy goes, no, I'm not. He goes, he's like, yeah, that you can't. He's like, first of all, I'm 18. It's legal for me to smoke cigarettes. And I'm not on school grounds. I'm across the street. And she goes, well, across the street is considered to be school grounds. So you're smoking on school grounds. And then he goes, wait a minute. So because I'm smoking, we are, as we speak right now, on school grounds. That's what you're telling me. She goes, yes. He goes, okay, well then we're not ditching because we're on school grounds, according to you. And she didn't like that. And she's like, oh my God, give me your IDs. He's like, no, I'm not giving you my ID. I'm like, yeah, now you mentioned I'm not giving you my ID either. That is bullshit. What kind of hypocrisy is that bullshit? And she's like, oh my God, go see the dean. And both of us were like, happily. So we went to go see the dean and we explained to him, dude, we were either on campus or off campus. Okay. But just because I lit up a cigarette does not make it on campus. And if it does, then okay, there's nothing illegal about me smoking because I'm 18. Okay. And we're not ditching. We're not off school campus, so we're not in trouble. So either way, we're not in trouble. Do you see what I'm getting at with this, Mr. Dean? And he just kind of looked at us and looked at me, and he's like, God, these fucking guys again. It's like these kids coming at me with all this logic and reason and making sense, making my job a living hell. He just looked at us and said, boys, just go to class. And that was it. That's all that happened. And to this day, my friend and I, we still joke about that to this day. And then there was another incident where we were at prom, and prom was really cool because we had this. We went to this big ballroom type place to have prom. It was great. And then at midnight, the entire whoever was at prom, the entire class or whatever, got on. I think it was like 4 or 5 Greyhound buses, and then we all took these buses down to downtown Chicago and got on one of those like huge. They're not cruise ships, obviously, because it's Lake Michigan, but they're much bigger than a yacht, but yet smaller than a cruise ship. Let's put it that way. And the party continued. They had DJs there, and they had food and music, and obviously non-alcoholic beverages, even though pretty much everyone there like snuck in flasks and things like that. And the party kept going. And then at 4 a.m, the boat would dock, and then the buses would take you back to that big ballroom, and then you were on your own from there to drive home with your date, drive your date home, or whatever the hell you're going to do. And that's safe. But anyway, the point is that a buddy of mine who I took his twin sister to prom. Thank God they didn't look alike. I took his twin sister to prom, but only he and I were on the top deck, and he was smoking a joint. And we're just sitting there bullshitting as people do, he and I. And all of a sudden, Shar comes popping up like out of nowhere, like the friggin' sea witch from the Popeye cartoon shows or some shit. And she's like, "Oh my God, I could smell that from here. I want your ID. I want your ID." And I told her, I said, "I'm not doing anything." I said, "I'm just standing here." And I wasn't. And then she goes, "No, I'm talking to you, pal, the one with the marijuana." And he goes, "Yeah, what about it?" And she's like, "Give me your ID." He's like, "No, that's the last thing I'll be doing." And she goes, "No, I want your ID because I'm going to make sure that you don't graduate on stage, in next week and all this other stuff." And he's like, "Yeah, that's exactly why I'm not going to give you my ID, because right now you have no idea who the hell I am, and I'm going to keep it that way." I was like, "That's a pretty damn good answer, brother." And she's like, "No, no, no." And he's like, "Well, yes, I'm not giving you my ID, so you may as well just walk away, because absolutely nothing is going to change. I'm going to continue smoking this, and you're not getting my ID. We are not on school grounds." And he just kept puffing away. And she was like, "Oh my God, these kids nowadays. And she just stormed off. And again, that was the end of it. But prom is a story I would love to tell you guys about, and I will. Just not in this episode, because it's about that time. And I've been yapping my yap long enough. But as always, gang, thanks for tuning in. And by all means, please throw me an email at outofpopculturebounds@gmail.com. Love to read them. I still have a few more in there, trying to organize them into an episode, but love reading them and, turning them into episodes. But anyway, until then, gang, I will talk to you later. Peace.